Hey guys, Board Now back with you for another new television review, and on this video I will be reviewing Picard, or Star Trek Picard I should say, Episode 8, Season 1, and it is called Broken Places. And a lot happening in this episode really, and I think that's because we're now heading for the end game as far as this season is concerned. They've already outlined, and there's going to be 3 seasons of this show in total, so that's quite a nice little condensed running time or plan, and it's always an advantage if you know how long you're going to get, so you can tell quite a nicely paced out and worked out story. But yeah, so coming towards the end game of this season, and it sort of feels like that because I can tell you then the last 2 episodes, episode 9 and 10, basically it's like a 2-parter, so this feels like the big setup penultimate episode, if you like, leading towards that big finale. So I think what I'll probably do is I'll probably do a double video for the finale. So I'll review episodes 9 and 10 together since it is a 2-parter. Seems to make sense that way. Since I've gotten a bit behind anyway. Once again, apologies. So a lot happening in Broken Places, so I'll skip around a bit, but I think I'm mostly positive. It's a decent enough episode with a lot of good kind of character drama and stuff happening. I think it's one of those episodes where I think it shows the quality of the cast in this, and that there are really good character moments and interesting things going on. But at the same time, a lot of it does feel like padding as well, that there are scenes that drag in this. And it's sort of odd because, in a way, there's scenes that kind of work dramatically, but at the same time, they also just feel, as I said, like padding. They feel like kind of buying a bit of time, just you're doing a little character beat. It's just, I don't know, kind of a pacing thing where they're slowing it down a bit to get to this point. And the last couple of episodes have been a bit longer, the last 2 or 3 actually, so this one is nearly an hour, it's 55 minutes. And in this case, I think that may be too long. I think there's at least 10 minutes you could probably take out of this. Maybe a bit longer. So that would probably be my main critique. Now, we get a flashback once again at the start. And the flashback is just to kind of reveal and tie up this the stuff with Commander O, full spoilers of course, again I should say that, Commander O or Commodore O, and the whole plot, all these, so 14 years ago, the kind of anti-synthetic rebellion, if you want to call it that. And basically it's like this coven of witches almost. I think that's quite a good term for them. So a bunch of characters, including obviously Rizzo, who we've seen, she's Narek's sister, and a few different characters. But Rizzo's obviously the notable one in the scene apart from Commodore O. And they just get together in this group, and Commodore O is like the ringleader, giving them this grand sort of speech, and just showing them what happened in the past. So it's similar to what she did to Jurati when she implanted that memory. And so she kind of implants these memories that this is what will happen if synthetic life are allowed to like life forms are allowed to run free again. This is one of the things that's revealed in this episode, that basically there was a negative consequence many years ago, so you're going a long way back, and she's kind of using that as like a motivation to shut down synthetic life, to do away with it altogether. And this opening scene, the flashback scene, is just really over the top and quite messy, because they all start reacting to these things, and you've got a group, and a bunch of them basically commit suicide, and Rizzo's one of the survivors, along with her, I can't remember if it's her grandmother or it's her auntie. And we see later then her auntie's in a coma, and Rizzo is kind of given this kind of plot dump really to her auntie, and like saying what the plan is. But because Rizzo survives all this, then she's obviously assigned this important role in like the Starfleet's mission and what have you. So that's kind of just the setup for the episode, and just explaining the backstory in how it all came to be. And it's kind of the last scene of the episode where Picard's talking to Rios, and he's obviously making this counter argument, and his argument is that just because this happened in the past, that is the past. We can change the future, sort of thing. Synthetic life and doesn't have to be a negative in the future if we work with them, if we work for a better sort of universe. So that's a great little speech. Again, really well delivered by Patrick Stewart, but that's kind of the counterpoint. And that, I mean, obviously we know the whole corruption and the backstory with Starfleet is obviously wrong anyway. What they're doing is wrong. But if you were in any doubt really that brilliant line from Picard just kind of solidifies that, then yeah, these are the good guys, and they are, their way of thinking in this example is the right way of thinking. It's a very like progressive, positive message that just because something was in a way it would almost be like sneering a country like, say, Germany for what happened with Hitler and with the Nazis. It's kind of that idea that, well, of course a race or a country can be a positive thing. You can't really hold their past, which these particular like beings weren't involved with, against them. But anyway, that's kind of cool sort of message. So because I set up this kind of coven, as I'm going to call them, at the start, then I will kind of start with Rizzo's side of the plot. And of course Emron and Who decided to stay behind to kind of fight the good fight to try and regain control of the cube. Of course Who was killed for his efforts, but Emron survived and he keeps doing it. But he's got a special guest. He's got a special friend along to help him, and that is 7 of 11. She's back after a couple of episodes or so. And again, Jenny Ryan, really great in this episode, really lights up the scenes with Emron, who I have to say I'm finding a bit of a tedious character. He's sort of had his moments, but he's so in and out of the plot, and I do find I don't know if it's the actor, but just find the character quite generic. But I think part of the problem is that he has been in and out of the plot. I think he hasn't been given enough to do when you compare him to like most of the other kind of like Picard's crew, it just hasn't had that sort of same established meaty sort of like character type arc, which may still come. But anyway, 7 of 11 joining him in this episode, I think, is a real bonus. And she arrives to support him. She's obviously got history invested in the Borgs. And I kind of love the desperation and the way she enters the scene. So she's like, "Where's who?" And then she hugs Emron, who's getting quite hysterical. And she's like, "What is happening to this cube?" And that's kind of a great sort of line, which I think is the last line before the credits. And you sort of only get a bit of them, but basically they're trying to take over the cube, reclaim it. Rizzo's trying to stop them. And I think in these scenes you do see where the extra money and the effects pay off, because there's some good sort of visual moments and nice use of effects in these scenes with 7-11 and Emron. 7 and 11. 7 and 9, folks. Sorry, schoolboy error. 7 of 9. And so there's this whole like almost Matrix type moment where 7 plugs into like the rest of the Borgs. She's trying to get inside their head, trying to like bring them all together, the power, but Rizzo kind of uses that against her, so that then she uses that to track all of them, and she just decides to basically wipe out a whole bunch of passengers anyway, just without any regard for who they are and whether they're innocent or guilty. She just decides to wipe them all out anyway, so that it like eliminates the problem. But eventually Emron and seven do wrestle back control of the cube, and I think again visually these scenes work really well. It's good to see 7 again. I think she carries a lot of these scenes, but they're still kind of hit and miss, the scenes, just because I think Emron's not that interesting, and I do think Rizzo in this episode is kind of a bit generic in the way she comes across, and just I think this is just one of those plots which is just starting to drag a bit, and a bit kind of, yeah. Maybe because it's the less focused of the plots in the episode, but there's something a little bit generic about it, even though visually I think the moments landed quite well. But there you have it. That's obviously an ongoing thing, but they managed to regain control of the cube, and the way it ended is that basically a bunch of the crew turned on Rizzo. They captured her, and yeah, I think because of obviously for revenge for her like turning on like random crew members, and yeah, that was the turning point, and that allowed 7 to regain control of the cube. So that was a pretty cool moment. I like that moment, which kind of was the last we saw of that plot in the episode. And on board, getting back to the crew, Picard's crew, things sort of really starting to escalate with what happened with Gelati and in the last episode. And I think this side of the plot in this episode is a good example of what I'm talking about, where I think I'm enjoying a lot of the stuff and dramatically it's landing, but it's probably just taking too long to get to the crucial moments. So obviously, Rios is really in hysterics, and it's not really clear why, but Picard and Sergio obviously show back up on board, and Picard's asking someone, well, anyone, but ideally Rios, to find them like an official kind of channel to get to the Red Planet. And Rios just freaks out at the sight of Sergio and just goes off, starts drinking, is really cut off from the rest. At the same time, she's obviously figured out that Jurati killed Maddox. Because of what happened, she's worked out that Jurati has more than likely had the tracker, because it's revealed that, of course, Jurati, who went into a coma, self-imposed coma in the last episode, she one of the reasons she injected herself with the drug was to try and wipe out the tracker, basically, which succeeded. But yeah, Rafi's really anxious, and it sort of escalates because when she sees Sergi, she's very suspicious, and she's like, yeah, you really shouldn't be trusting this person, Picard. So it becomes a whole thing. And yeah, Jurati does come clean to Picard in probably one of the best scenes of the episode. She's like, again, great acting from Alison Pill, where she takes Picard through it. She explains what happened and how she just felt she had no choice and how she was manipulated. And Picard is kind of sympathetic, even though he's obviously upset and quite mad at her. But it's agreed that she'll hand herself over when they get back to like Starfleet, because Picard manages to arrange for like an official Starfleet sort of flight. Because there's this sort of funny scene with Clancy, I think, one of his contacts, and he's just trying to talk her into getting backup from someone at Starfleet, because obviously things are starting to get desperate. And I do like Clancy just cutting him, or saying, sort of fuck you, basically, because he's just going on, and she gives him the clearance. So that's a pretty funny scene, and Picard's reaction to it is pretty funny. But yeah, emotionally and drama wise, the scene with Jurati and Picard is really great. You can just see the torment from Alison Pill, and just how she just regrets the way things have gone down. You feel that she is devastated then, because she says later on, this is I wanted so badly to be part of this crew, so badly to be part of something. So you can see the anguish in her face, and the way she reacts to it, and just how resigned she is. It's very bittersweet, because she does confess to the crew, and she said, I'm going to give myself up when we get there. But they're kind of there for her. They don't actually judge her. Actually, Raffi even stops judging her at that point. And I think there's some ambiguity over how much of it was her and how much she was being controlled and manipulated. But in any event, it's this moment of resignation, but it's kind of odd, really. You just wonder, is that going to be the end of it? They've obviously set this character up as one of the big characters, and I mean, Alison Pill is great. She's been one of the highlights of this season. So you've got to hope that in some form Gelati will stick around after the mission. But we'll see about that one. Anyway, one of the examples I'm talking about in terms of like the whole thing dragging is that Raffi is concerned about Rios and is wondering exactly why he's so down. And you get this kind of convoluted thing where she just goes through, she starts talking to all like the clones basically, or like the holograms, all his different personas. And I say that because it's revealed in this episode and they're all meant to represent a different side of him. And it's one of those things, it sort of feels like it's an excuse for the actor to like really go at it and let loose with these like wacky, like different sides of the character. You get like a really kind of like cliche but comical like Scottish accent, because one of them's supposed to be Scottish, and then an Irish accent, and you get just different sides to the persona. And I did quite enjoy those scenes. I think they went on a bit long, but the problem is I think it just feels like a lot of that stuff could have been cut out. And I do have another problem, which is that when we find out the reveal, and the reveal is that Rios, when he saw Sergio, it reminded him of the past, and it turns out he has this past where he was close to like a Starfleet like captain or officer, and he got close also to a girl, Jenna, I think her name was, and it turned out she was a synthetic life form like Sergio, and she was killed by the officer he like bonded with, and with his father, in fact, I should say, and that was because of who she was and because of the whole plot to like suppress synthetic life forms, and that's what scarred him, and he had tracked like the progress of the Borgs and the synthetic life form very closely, and we get this juxtaposed with like the scene of Jurati like talking to Sergio, and that's a really beautiful, powerful scene actually, because of course Jurati was originally like assigned to kill Sergio when she showed up, but obviously now she's confessed and it's, you know, she's given in, so it's very different, and it's just this moment of irony almost, but beautiful irony, because she was supposed to kill it and now she's like, this is just beautiful. She just is so in the moment with this creation, and these scenes juxtaposed together really get across just the beauty of Sergio and the beauty of creating this life form, and just how close it is to human, and just the little touches. So I did like the scene with Jurati and Sergio, but that's the reveal with Rios, and I think my problem with it is just then it just feels a little bit forced, and he has to have this connection to like the synthetic plot. Like it has to be a personal sort of thing. It just feels, as I said, a bit forced, a bit sort of soapy, and I don't know, like I understand why they do it. I just think sometimes I think you have a supporting character. He's part of the main cast, but I think you can build him up over the season as a character, as he relates to Picard, as he relates to the main plot sort of thing. I don't think you necessarily have to have this like personal sort of like motivation, this troubled past necessarily. Again, it all works quite well, and it's quite a dark little like reveal, but I think we just take too long to get him. The stuff with Raffi and the clones, the actual payoff, I think, works quite well, which is what I would say, which is why I would excuse this episode largely, because the stuff at the end, or the scenes that pay the build up off, I think actually work well. It's just there is some padding in there and scenes we didn't need. I think you could have cut the stuff with Raffi and the different like personalities, clones, different sides of him. I mean, you maybe could have still have had it, then she found out that way, but I don't think they needed to like show you as much as they did. But anyway, there you have it. So that was that side of the plot. And I think that's mostly it for the episode. We get more Picard and Sergio stuff. We get more of him like telling her about Data and really souring on it. And they come together like over dinner around a table where Sergio obviously she tries to, in fact she does take over the ship to like, she wants to do the mission herself. She wants to go rogue. Like she feels like personally responsible because of the she essentially led them to the Red Planet and has put her people in danger. So that's why she goes rogue and wants to do things her way. And yeah, finally they convince her, talk her around, and there's a moment between her and Rios where, yeah, he kind of takes back control and sort of promises her he'll take her to the Red Planet. But Picard also says we've tried things this way, that way, let's try things her way now. So it's this give and take type thing. So there you have it. That's pretty much the episode. As I said, solid episode, mostly good. Just maybe a bit too long, a bit too much kind of like plodding scenes, too much like dialogue heavy scenes. Some stuff a little bit on the nose, but mostly good. That's Star Trek Picard, episode 8 of the first season, Broken Places. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below, and how you think the season as a whole has developed. And I'll be back very soon with the finale, of course, and since it's a 2-part finale, I'll do that video together, so both parts together. And stay tuned for more TV and more film reviews. I'll see you guys again soon. Goodbye.